All right, the audio is set to the USB device on here. There should be no reason for this being a problem here. Okay, hello. Okay, I'm still trying to listen, and I don't hear anything coming through on this screen here. I'm sending you the link, Joshua, to see if we can... Oh, nope, here we go. I got something here. All right, here we go. We're on. Hello, everybody. Sorry for that little issue here. We're going to have to cut all of that. We're going to have to cut like all of that stuff right now that just happened out of it. So anyway, sorry, Joshua. But anyway, so that's my brother who's the production manager for the show, and yeah, he's gonna have to do some editing at the beginning of this just to make sure we can skip all that audio issues. But for those of you who are here, welcome to the show. So anyway, plenty to talk about since we haven't done a show in a while, and what we're gonna wind up doing here is that we're gonna talk about all the stuff that happened in training camp and the past 2 preseason games, and finally gonna end up with what do we want to see from the dress rehearsal game against the Baltimore Ravens. It's going to be a good show, and I'm really excited to be able to talk about this again. All right. So let's go ahead and get started, and we're going to get started with what I saw from training camp. Now, as everybody is probably well aware by now, I spent pretty much every day I possibly could going to training camp, making sure that I was watching everything, giving everybody play-by-play, and every year I do my best. It's hard work, but I enjoy it all the same. And this year I saw some very distinct things that seem to be carrying over somewhat in preseason, one of which is that Kenyon Drake is as shifty and as fast as he ever has been, and there's some big-time production coming from there. And in the past 2 preseason games, in the limited time that he's had, he's managed to show, once again, that he's pretty much primed to make a major leap as far as being a star running back. We've had some debates these past couple of days, at least I have on Twitter, regarding Jay Ajayi's role in the Dolphins' success in 2016, but that's a completely different story. I think Kenyon Drake can, once again, offer a lot more than Ajayi ever did, just because he seems to be able to do more than Ajayi ever could. So another one is Ryan Tannehill being, he's sharp, he knows where he's throwing the football. Has he been perfect? No, no quarterback is. Even Tom Brady throws incomplete passes and interceptions, I'm sorry to say, for those of you who worship the ground he walks on. But everybody makes mistakes. Tannehill has not made many, and that's a good thing. And for those of you who are upset that he hasn't gone deep every 5 minutes, well, Adam Gase has words for you, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So there's a lot of stuff to talk about, and I honestly don't know where to start. Actually, you know what? I'm going to turn it over to you, Chad. I want you to just think real quick. Is there anything over these past couple of preseason games or something that happened in training camp that seems to have caught your attention more than anything else? Maybe a concern or something you're impressed with more than everything else?
Well, I think the primary concern for me remains the same, and I really believe it's the same for the coaches, and that's the backup quarterback situation. I don't think Brock Osweiler has looked that phenomenal to me. I think David Fales, kind of showed some struggles for himself, and I highly question whether the team can win with either one of those guys at quarterback. And so I look at that, and I think that right now is the nightmare situation for the whole organization, is if Ryan Tannehill were to get hurt early on in the season, because I think that's really the only scenario where I could see at least maybe Mike Tannenbaum and very, very possibly Adam Gase even getting in trouble with their jobs, because this team really, this time last year when Tannehill had gotten hurt, you just had that feeling amongst the fans, and I even talked to several fans that expressed that they just felt like the season was over before it started. We were bringing in Jay Cutler, and it was just like, we don't have a chance, and that really came, to prove true. We weren't very competitive because we didn't have good quarterback play. And so I think there's a lot of people out there in the back of their mind right now that aren't necessarily against Ryan Tannehill, but they have that back of the mind that the Dolphins just did not do anything to get somebody in there that's a capable backup if we were to go through that same exact scenario again. So, watching the preseason game so far, my thought process hasn't changed that, we do not have a capable backup quarterback, and whether or not this team is going to explore bringing somebody in free agency. Obviously I've seen a lot of Twitter talk about people wanting Teddy Bridgewater, but I don't believe that's probably going to happen. But that's my number one concern. It remains the same. The good news with that is if Ryan Tannehill stays healthy, that'll never be a concern, through the whole year. But beyond that, a few podcasts back, I mentioned that when we let Ndamukong Suh go, I was worried about our D tackles, and I remain worried about them. I know there's a lot of confidence that the organization's putting out, but Jordan Phillips has never been anything but up and down in terms of consistency, and we've got some low picks in there that have performed well for where they were drafted, but once this season gets going, are we really going to be able to stop that power run game up the middle of the field? And you saw Carolina, tear us apart a little bit with their starters with that interior running game. And so that, mixed right now with Raekwon McMillan appearing to be slow at picking up, which that, Kiko is a little bit undersized. And so, I'm looking at that combination of if our D tackles are struggling a little bit and our linebackers are struggling a little bit at defending the run, are we going to be vulnerable in that regard? And so those are my two concerns right now. Beyond that, though, I feel like across the board, the team has improved. Our offensive line is clearly better, which is really a breath of fresh air because we've had an offensive line that's been in the bottom third of the league ever since Ryan Tannehill's been on the team. And so I am pretty excited to see Ryan Tannehill at least get a serviceable offensive line. I'm not saying that we're going into the season with an all-pro offensive line that's just going to dominate the line of scrimmage, but at least it's not a liability anymore. And I think that will give Ryan Tannehill a chance to maybe actually show what he's capable of when he actually has some protection. I feel like our run blocking's improved. So we ought to see a team that's more capable at running the ball and capable at putting points on the board, and that's going to be the key this year. I know that seems obvious that you got to score more points to win, but this team right now has really, really good defensive ends. Everybody got to see what Robert Quinn can do. I've been excited since they got him. When you pair him with Cameron Wake and with the depth they have behind those guys, we have a team that can really rush the passers. We've got some very talented players in the secondary. I know they're still trying to gel that together, but I'm a huge advocate of Minkah Fitzpatrick on the field with Rashad Jones, an all-world player. Xavier Howard has shown what he can do. And so what this team needs to do is we need to get teams in situations where they need to throw the football. And that will really, really help protect that interior run game. And once you get up 10 points or even 14 points in a game, it doesn't matter anymore if teams have a power running game. They can no longer use that. And, we've seen that happen to the Dolphins in the past with like this Tony Sparano teams where we had them big physical offensive lines and Ricky Williams and Ronnie Brown, and we could really power on the football. But we would go match up with teams like the Patriots, and they would just throw 21 points up on the board in a quarter and a half, and we were done. We didn't have the personnel to be able to throw the football. And so we want to get into those sorts of matchups this season. And so that's really what it's going to come down to is Ryan Tannehill staying healthy and this team being able to score points. And I think it's time as a fan base and as a team, it's time to hold Adam Gase accountable a little bit. This is his third year. He was brought here because he was supposed to be one of the top offensive minds available and really good at developing quarterbacks. And that this team hasn't been winning with Adam Gase going out there and putting offenses out there that really put points on the board. So this offseason, he's brought in his guys, the guys that are supposed to be able to read defenses and execute a lot better. He's got his quarterback back, and so I'm expecting the Dolphins offense to score points. And if they struggle again this year, and we're seeing a lot of these 3-and-outs, you got to start to question whether Adam Gase is really the offensive guru that people think that he is.
Okay, so then I guess the question would have to be are you concerned over the first two preseason games? Because this is the thing. You said that you brought up the 3-and-outs a lot, but the Dolphins have been marching up and down the field with the starting offense like it's no big deal. That hasn't been an issue. They can go between the 20s. They've struggled, however, in actually scoring the touchdowns, and that is the main concern at this point. People, if the concern is the Dolphins won't be able to move the ball, then I think that's wrong because this offense is taking whatever teams give them. They were Adam Gase was actually talking about how the Panthers were playing them in a way that prevented them from throwing deep, which I can understand that. It's not like that's unheard of. What people have is this idea, this theory that all you have to do is throw it deep every play, and either the ball's going to come down in the hands of the receiver, or there's going to be a penalty that the referees will play that says pass interference or something along those lines. And it's a wonderful thought in theory, but if we're being perfectly real about it, that won't work. It just won't. Because eventually they're going to realize, okay, they're just trying to take advantage of the fact that we're going to throw a flag, and we're not going to actually do that all the time. It's not going to work. Because even then, defenses can just say, oh, well, if that's what you want to play, then we'll just put a couple extra, we'll just play the quarter package, and we'll have cornerbacks all over the field. Now what are you going to do? And if the Dolphins aren't built for power running football, which is how you would counteract a quarter defense because you got smaller guys running all over the place, then you still don't have the personnel. No matter what, you can't just go for the big play every time. They can move the ball just by throwing those 5-yard routes and stuff like that. That has never been the issue. The issue has been scoring the touchdowns. Now, do you think that do you still think moving the ball is going to be the issue, or is it just the touchdowns you're worried about?
I'm not that worried either one right now. I'm looking forward to it. I'm just saying I'm expecting that for this team to be successful. This team can't be this is not a team that can win games 10-7 or 14-10. I just don't think we have the run personnel on defense right now to be able to stop a team from being able to hit that 3-yard a carry, 4-yard a carry over and over and over. I don't think we'll succeed very well at that. And so I think the way this team is built is the defense is built to attack the pass, and the offense is in theory designed to run no huddle and score lots of points and keep a defense on its heels. I'm not too worried about the non-scoring issue in the preseason. One is usually that's where the play designs are the most creative, or when you get inside the 20. And two, I think the two biggest contributors this year to increase our point totals in the red zone are going to be Gesicki and Frank Gore. And I'm a big advocate of once we get inside the 20, I don't think that Kenyon Drake offers a significant upgrade over Frank Gore, and that Frank Gore is very good on cutback lanes, and he's a very physical runner. And I want to put that defense in the position where if you're going to go light and try to match guys up against Mike Gesicki, maybe Devontae Parker, if he's healthy, get those guys in there that are very difficult to defend those passes that you can put high up in the air. And everything I've seen of Gesicki looks to me like he's going to be a red zone nightmare for teams because he can elevate so high. He's going to be a hard matchup for a corner due to his size. He's going to be a hard matchup for a linebacker due to his speed. And I think once you get inside the red zone, then you can move him around and get him into a variety of matchups. And if teams don't want to commit 2 guys to covering him, you can really attack him with a guy like Frank Gore. And so those are the 2 players we didn't have last year, mixed, obviously with a better line than Ryan Tannehill. So I feel confident that Adam Gase should be able to score points, and that's where I'm going. That I think the personnel is there for this offense to make a big step forward on getting points on the board. So I guess that's where I'm at. I don't think we're going to have a lot of trouble moving the ball, and I think this team. That's kind of a misnomer. Is team are always looking for the big plays, but most teams in the NFL aren't bombing the ball all game. That's what you're alluding to as well, Lewis. And
yeah.
It's a low percentage, play. You can throw a 30-40 yard bomb down the field, but you just got to realize that most likely that's not going to work. It's not going to work out. It's probably going to be incomplete or however that turns out, and then you're at 2nd and 10, and 2nd and 10 changes your playbook because you can also have just thrown a pass and put yourself at 2nd and 5, or you could have just run the ball and put yourself at 2nd and 7. And that changes the field quite a bit than 2nd and 10. And so that's why you don't take a lot of shots. You take them when you can. And I feel like the Dolphins will. And anybody that's saying that Miami won't be able to utilize a deep ball didn't really pay attention in 2016, because that was the narrative we heard forever, is Ryan Tannehill can't hit the deep ball. And going all the way back to those few years ago, I was saying that whole time, no, Mike Wallace doesn't run consistent deep routes. He changes his speed up all the time, which makes it really, really hard for a quarterback to hit him on deep routes. And so I think with Kenny Stills there, Devontae Parker there, Jakeem Grant, Kenyon Drake, we've got some really exciting personnel from a speed standpoint that I feel very confident Miami will take just as many shots down the field, and I think you'll see that Ryan Tannehill can throw the deep ball just fine, and so that deep ball will be in play throughout the game too. But for anybody that wants to see it like every third pass be a bomb down the field, that's not this offense. This offense is exactly what you said, Lewis. It's read the defense and you throw the ball to where they're not. That's what they try to do all game.
Serious question, first for a moment. It's not really off topic, but at the same time, maybe it is. But you just said if you expect to see if you expect to see a deep ball every third pass, this offense isn't built like that. Can anybody, including you, Chad, I don't know, maybe you can anybody name me one offense in this NFL that runs that kind of an offense? Seriously.
No, you don't see it. I think sometimes the game itself, sets that up, because if you get a penalty, let's say, which this team has always been on the wrong side of penalties, but let's say you're playing a team when their defense jumps off sides and they give you a 1st and 5. If you're in those sorts of games, 1st and 5 is a great play to say, you know what, I'm just going to send Gilsicki down the middle, or I'm just going to send Devontae Parker down the sideline. And if I see those guys have a one-on-one matchup, I'm just going to put it up. And hopefully your quarterback can do that in a manner that it either sails out of bounds or the guy gets a big play along the sidelines. But the game situation there has dictated you can take some more shots. If you're down 10 points and your offensive line's giving you a false start, so you're coming in at 1st and 15, the defense isn't giving you a defense that allows you to take a big shot down the field. They're saying, absolutely, we'll give you a dump off underneath. And that's what you have to take. If you're throwing a ball down the field into double coverage with a safety back there, it's just poor. It's a poor pass. And so that's where I think it can get misleading, where you might see a team taking more shots than another team because they're having the game go their way better from a situational standpoint. And Miami has a lot of times not had that. And another thing people, I think about is you still think about football from maybe 20 years ago, where it was a much more run first, pass second. And so you had teams, maybe like the Oakland Raiders, I could say, for an example, from the 70s and 80s, where they would run, 2 or 3 out of 4 plays. And then when they passed, they didn't even worry about, a short, high percentage pass. They would throw a lot of bombs down the field to try to take advantage of the situation because they were having success running the football. And so those days are gone. And the Patriots, to me, they're the team that's won the most consistently the last decade. And you watch those games, and it isn't Tom Brady bombing the ball all game long.
It's dink and dunk game.
It's you get to the point where you're just disheartened as a defense because where you line up, the receiver just runs an out if you're on the other side, and he just runs a slant if you're on the other side. And they complete a 3-yard pass, a 4-yard pass, a 6-yard pass, and they just do it all game long to you. And that's what the NFL's trying to do. And to do that, you need receivers that can read the defense and a quarterback that can read the defense, that have very good timing, that can run those sort of routes based on what the defense gives them. And so that's the difference. That's what Adam Gase is trying to do. That's why Amendola is here and Landry's gone. Is Amendola should be phenomenal at reading the defense and knowing exactly what route and what depth of route to run to be open. And that my hope is that we'll see a lot of dinking and dunking, and they will move down the field just like they did in the preseason these last couple of games. And then we'll get to see our players like Gilsicki and those guys that can help us get some of those red zone targets and turn them into touchdowns instead of field goals.
Savan Triplet in the chat says that Madden 19, Tannehill has a good deep ball rating. Well, first of all, I'm very glad to hear that they finally realized that the whole narrative about Tannehill is no good at the deep ball is dead. That's just not true. And Savan Triplet also basically gives a very strong suggestion to the both of us, Mr. Ronnebaum. Just stop talking about the Patriots. How about that? Well, I mean, we could, except for the simple fact that the Dolphins are trying to emulate exactly what the New England Patriots are doing. I'm sorry to say, like if you can talk about how we want to do things originally, but in the NFL, what really is original anymore? I think the last thing that was truly even remotely original, as in somebody came in and made something brand new, I think that was when Chip Kelly came in and took over for the Eagles that one year, those couple of years. That was the last thing that was truly unheard of in the NFL. And even then, it's not like it was anything spectacular. It was just a really fast-paced offense. Fast-paced offenses are not new in the NFL. It's just that Chip Kelly wanted to do, I guess Chip Kelly was the first coach to introduce ludicrous speed to the NFL. And I find that funny because that's exactly what the Dolphins are trying to do now, is that they're even utilizing the term ludicrous speed. So if that works out, then that's fine. And the no huddle seemed to work a lot better against Carolina than it did against the Buccaneers in week 1 of the preseason. So you have to the way that you have to see this Dolphins offense is that they are taking what they are given. That is the way to win football games in today's NFL. You can't just let me try to explain it in a way that makes sense. You cannot dictate how a game goes anymore. In a way, it is still the defense that dictates how a game goes. However, it is not so much that the defense it's not what the defense does that makes the game go one way. It is what the defense doesn't do that makes the defense go away. Because if the defense gives you space to run, you should run the football. That's what they're giving you. The defense just dictated what you're going to do. You are going to run the football because they're letting you run the football. And if they give you a deep pass available option, then that's what you should do. That's what they're giving you. If they don't give it to you, then trying to take it from them is not usually a good idea. If you want to challenge them, then good on you for having the guts to do that, but it's not a safe option. And with all the preaching that is done about taking care of the football and making sure that you don't turn the ball over, that's something that we have been preaching for the last 2 or 3 years now with Adam Gase as the coach. Take care of the football, do not make mistakes, and everything will be just fine. And we've seen it work. Chad, I'm gonna bring this up, and this is probably the biggest concern that I have going forward, and I really want to see something change against the Ravens in week 3 about it. The only team that can stop the Dolphins is the Dolphins. And I think you know where I'm going with this. The only team that can stop the Dolphins is the Dolphins themselves. They're the only team that can stop them. Because every time we got a drive going against Carolina, like every time, something went horribly wrong that put them in a hole that they could not get out of. They were moving down the field, no sweat, no problems. They got to the 9. They were this close to getting into the end zone, and then somebody did something really stupid, and they wound up going back. And then they couldn't get back in because those penalties and those mistakes, for whatever cause, have been the only reason why they haven't been able to score this preseason. Every time, it's because somebody did something really dumb, there was a flag, and we couldn't get out of the hole. Now, if you want to complain about the fact that we should be able to get out of those holes, then that's a different discussion. Then yes, I would agree with you. We should be able to get out of those holes. But what's more important is not getting in those holes to begin with. We have no business getting into those holes in the first place. The offensive line should not be having issues where every time we start driving the football, something goes wrong and we end up in 1st and 15, 2nd and 15, 3rd and 20. Like, it's very hard to convert on 3rd down when your 3rd downs are more than 6, 7, 8 yards. In a world where the offense does what it's supposed to do and it executes properly, if you ever wind up on 3rd down, it shouldn't be more than 3rd and 5. And guess what? 3rd and 5 is a lot different than 3rd and 10, 3rd and 11, 3rd and 15, etc., etc. I've been trying to get into this project, and I've been looking for the time to get it done. But I have been going back to 2016, and I'm looking at all the 3rd downs that the Dolphins wound up in, and I'm trying to see exactly how many times were they dug into a hole on that third down. So far, I have 4 plays that I've actually put up GIFs about because it takes a while to set everything up. Because I have to actually watch the play, record the play, I have to make it, put it in a GIF form, and I have to put it on the website and all that stuff, and it takes a while to do, believe me. But I have been looking at it, and so far, 3 out of the 4 plays that I've looked at have been more than 5 yards on third down. That's a problem. No wonder the Dolphins are one of the worst third down teams in football. They're always in a hole every time they get there. Because something happened, false start, offensive line breakdown, something. It's never been a moment of, oh, they just didn't get enough yards. It's because something happened that was a precursor to their failure. It was never a 3 and out as in, oh, we just didn't get enough to count for 10 yards. It was always because somebody added more yards, and the net total of yards that we had to get was higher than what was necessary to get a first down. You should never need more than 10 yards to get a first down, but it always felt like they have to get a total of 15, 20, 25 yards every third down. You can't do that. That's why you fail on third down. You should be at 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5 tops on third downs if you're a good offense. And if you want to complain about that to Adam Gase, that's fine. I don't know how else he can fix the whole penalties thing, because at some point you have to put some credibility on the players. And this is the argument that I had with Antoine Staley on Twitter. It was a brief one, but it was an argument nonetheless, is that at what point do we stop blaming Adam Gase and start looking at the players for what's going on? Because Adam Gase has never been somebody who shies away from blame. Adam Gase has never been somebody who shirks off his responsibility. If he says that if he made a mistake, he's man enough to say he's the one who screwed up. We know this. He's said it many times before that it was on me, it was on me, it was on me. But he also calls out the players when it's necessary, which he did when they weren't learning the playbook last, I think it was late 2016, I think it was. Yeah, it was against the Ravens game in 40-0 that they just weren't learning the playbook, and Adam Gase had enough. He called them out because this time it wasn't his fault. It is on the players to some degree. We want to keep talking about how Don Shula would have handled things, and I even wrote a whole freaking article on exactly how Don Shula handled situations like this. And so far, the comparisons that I came up with, Adam Gase is doing things pretty much the same way Don Shula would do things. He's just a little friendlier with players when they're not screwing around. If they're not paying attention, then Gase gets all Shula on them. He'll bench you, he'll cut you, and if you stick around for longer than you probably should, then it's probably because the guy behind you is like 3 times worse than you are. So it's kind of a no-win situation. But he's never been afraid of cutting people who aren't getting the job done. And he's never been afraid of benching people when they're not getting the job done. Ask Byron Maxwell how he felt when Adam Gase decided to bench him for, rookie Cordray Tankersley at the time. Maxwell got the boot because he wasn't doing a good enough job. That's a little crazy. Byron Maxwell was one of the most big-time names in veteran cornerbacks. And that's how it is. So now you have to look at it like this. At what point do you start looking at Adam Gase, and at what point do you start looking at the players? Because what else can Adam Gase do to make it so that the players stop making these mistakes? Because it's not they ran a wrong route anymore. It's not they are not getting the timing right. It's penalties. And penalties are lapses in concentration. How do you discipline a player out of that? I don't even know if there is a way. He's made them run gassers. He's made them do push-ups. He's benched players, cut players. What else can he do at this point?
Well, I think that's been my concern with him too, Louis. The penalties, and with Adam Gase, the year they made the playoffs as well as last year, both years, the first 4 or 5 games, the execution on the team was terrible. And so that to me, that is reflective on coaching to an extent. Now, I agree with you. You have to have accountability for the people, and that to me, that's why this year is a bigger year for me on Adam Gase. And to Adam Gase's credit, I think he did what he could, because that's why, in my mind, obviously the primary factor was how much money he was expecting, but Adam Gase wants a guy like Amendola. He doesn't want a Jarvis Landry when it comes to executing the type of plays he wants to run and the no huddles he wants to run. And he cleaned house on a lot of his staff. And, I mentioned last year, when your offensive lineman the head coach of your offensive line, the
offensive line coach, Chris Forster, and his little issue.
When that's what he's doing, is anybody shocked that our offensive line is getting a lot of penalties? And so it wasn't just the offensive line. He replaced several coordinators in the offseason, and I think that's Adam Gase making the point that, look, I have an offense I want to run, and I have not had a team yet that's capable of running this offense. They're either not disciplined enough or they're not smart enough to do it. And so you saw a lot of switching around coming into the season, and Adam Gase didn't necessarily go after what's the best talent from strength and speed on paper. He went after, in theory, players that are going to be better at executing this offense. And so if they struggle again this year, now that he's brought in a lot more of his guys, so to speak, and he's got a lot of his draft picks, so to speak, at some point you got to start to question, is Adam Gase's system not a coachable system that players can execute, or is he not able to conduct practices in a manner to get his players ready to execute that system? Because you can blame players, of course, but if it's a reoccurring thing year in and year out, you got to start to wonder, is it just not being handled in a way that works? And my take in it from afar, obviously we're not in the building, is I think Adam Gase is doing everything he can do to improve that. And I believe it stems from the idea that Adam Gase had a lot of his success in Denver, and he had Peyton Manning. And you're talking about a quarterback who had been in the league for well over a decade, and so he had a quarterback in his lap that Peyton Manning could probably coach the offense at every position. He just was so well versed that you can send Peyton Manning out there and run all these sophisticated no huddle, more advanced schemes, I think. And now when he got to Miami, I think he's been struggling to get that in place, because it takes a quarterback that has the time to work and work and work in that system and develop in it. And he hasn't had that. I mean, Jay Cutler, what else was Adam Gase going to do? And again, to me, that's the personnel where I was going back to the end of the show, is they have not had a backup quarterback in place to be ready to come in if that's needed. But it is. How would Shula handle it? Would it be different? I think all you can do as a coach is, if your players are not showing the discipline to not get false starts and to commit stupid penalty, that just have game awareness. If it's 3rd and 1, all you need to get is a yard. Don't do something stupid. And so, especially away from the play, if you're a receiver and you're holding away from the play on a 3rd and 1, that's just stupid. And so I think he's trying to get away from that, and all you can probably do as a coach is get different people, get different coaches, and get different people until you get people in there that can run your system. And so that's where we're at right now with this team is can they do it? And it's still concerning, Lewis. I mean, you're still seeing a lot of penalties in the preseason with the team. And so, some penalties, that's part of the game. You're going to have penalties and you have to overcome them. But you're absolutely right. How do you even judge how good is Ryan? How do you even judge your guys as the coach, even when you're getting these false starts and you're so often going on 1st and 20 and 2nd and 15, and that's what you're starting with, and it changes the whole dynamic of your play calling, because Adam Gase does like to run these quick passes out of the no huddle, and they're not designed to be 10-yard passes, 10-yard gains every time. You're trying to get a guy in space after getting the ball in his hands in 2 or 3 yards and hoping he can make a play. And it's pretty tough sledding if you're at 2nd and 15 and you're trying to throw a 3-yard pass to a guy in space, and he gets tackled. Now you're at 3rd and 11. Those are really hard conversions, and they were in them a lot last year relative to the rest of the league. So that's going to be a huge factor is can they do it this year? And I think the players are going to have to really, really watch Juwan James and Laremy Tunsil are, in particular, are they going to cut down on false starts and holding penalties that we were plagued with last year? And is the offensive line as a whole going to be more consistent? And are the receivers going to run the routes that they're supposed to more consistently? That's a hard thing to see on TV, that a receiver ran the wrong route. But from everything I've heard from people that are closer to what's going on in the building, is they had a lot of trouble with it last year, where receivers just weren't understanding where they were supposed to be on a route based on what the defense was giving them. And so I think that's why you're going to see a lot of Amendola. You're going to see more Albert Wilson in there. And I think the hope is that those are Adam Gase guys that they're pretty smart. They're going to know where to be at on the field at a given time and a given look.
I can understand that, Chad, and I understand that from the receiver standpoint. But think about what we're talking about here. What's happening is not a lack of even execution in route running and stuff like that. That's not the issue right now. The offense is moving. We've seen it move twice now, against Tampa Bay and against Carolina. The ball moves. That's not an issue. The issue, however, and I don't know how complex can it possibly be to not jump early? How complex can it be to not do holding? Holding is universal. No matter what kind of offense overall you're running, the offensive line still has one job. Do not let your quarterback get nailed, or make sure you have a running back that can get through the holes that you make for them, if you can make one at all. That's your job, no matter what. You either have a zone blocking scheme or you have a power blocking scheme. I'm sure there are lots of little itty-bitty variations, but those are the main two. And no matter what kind of an offense you run with your receivers and your running backs and whatever cadence you want to run with your quarterback, it's still the same job. Do not jump early. Do not hold. And you should be okay. But what are the two things that we seem to get more than anything else that digs us into that hole? False starts and holding calls. I don't think that is a symptom of a complicated offense. There's something else going on here, and that's what is the most frustrating part. And I don't know how else to fix it.
Well, I think as I said, Lewis, I'm hoping that the changes in staffing and some of the player changes are going to help that. And again, I wouldn't get too uptight about the preseason is nobody shows anything. And so you're seeing a lot of base defensive looks, and your offense is running a lot of vanilla plays because they're not going to show what they're going to do. And I have to think with the weapons that Gase is getting this year that he really hasn't had in years past. Albert Wilson can fly. Jakeem Grant can fly. Kenyon Drake can fly. Mike Gesicki's a nightmare to try to match up one-on-one. And so I think the looks and what Adam Gase should be able to do from some play call standpoints should be really fun. But we've got to have these guys working together, and they've got to be able to execute it, in particular at a high pace. And so it comes down to discipline. I think more than anything is again, awareness of what's going on. If you're an offensive lineman, and you have to understand, if you can take away the false starts, if you just take away a hard count and just go, have the in the most basic sense, you just go on one, then you're not going to have false starts. But if you can be disciplined as a line, and your quarterback can do a 2, 3, or even 4 hard count, a lot of times you'll see it as you're watching games, you see a defense jump that's blitzing. Like you see a guy run up to blitz because the quarterback hard counts, and then he backs off. That's a huge advantage if your quarterback and receivers are paying attention. Then they know there's a blitz coming from a certain direction, and so your quarterback then can call out to the running back to pick that guy up, and your receiver can adjust his route, and your quarterback can know exactly where to go with the ball. And to get that, you need to be able to do hard counts to kind of get a feel for where the defense is going. And that means your offensive line has got to be able to not give those false starts. And that's just a basic example, I think, of what Adam Gase is struggling with, is not being able to do the kind of things he wants. Because you should go back and watch some film of Peyton Manning and even watch Brady and watch how often they get the defense to move around prior to the snap. Peyton Manning, everybody used to laugh at all the crap he was yelling out, the Omaha and all the signals and all the moving around he's doing. But really what he's doing there is pre-snap is he's trying to get the defense to show its hand a little bit. And those guys are so good at reading the defense. If you do show your hand a little bit, you're already dead because they know exactly where to go with the football. And that takes smart players that are able to read that stuff. And I really do think that's where they're trying to go. And, if you're tired of using the Patriots as an example, the Eagles are not built a whole lot different than the Dolphins are built. The Eagles have a defensive line that can rush the passer all game long, and they were good at scoring points, and they throw a lot of short passes around the field. that's not a whole lot different than what the Dolphins are trying to do. And the Eagles won Super Bowl with that. That's the trend that the league wants to go. Is they want quarterbacks and receivers and running backs that can do those quick passes that are taking what the defense gives you. And so it's just my hope. From the glass half full standpoint, I think Miami is a long ways ahead of what we're going to face in the division other than the Patriots. I think Buffalo is going to really have a tough round this year because I think they lost another offensive lineman, I want to say, and I don't think they have a lot of talent at their receiving skill positions. And Josh Allen, I don't think as a quarterback it's going to flourish with a poor offensive line if he's under a lot of duress. And so, I love the idea of if we can put some points up on Buffalo, get 14 points in the first quarter on Buffalo and make them have to use Josh Allen to throw all game with Cameron Wake and Robert Quinn, being able to tee off on him. That's a great situation for the Dolphins to be in, and it's not a whole lot different for the Jets. They want to get Darnold in there as soon as they can to get him developing, and that's what we got 2 rookie quarterbacks in the division, and both of those teams are not flashing really high-powered, skilled players. They're going to struggle to score points, and so I feel pretty good in terms of what the league's trying to do. The pass the football all over the field and have a defense that can really attack the pass. Miami's, they're moving up on what you want to have in the league, and they're in a good position right now in the division. The Patriots have a whole host of their own troubles right now. It's not like the Patriots are coming into this year with a team that looks like it's just stacked, that's going to just dominate. And so this is a good opportunity for the Dolphins to get their act together. They've got, quarterback in his prime. They've got a lot of speed on offense, and they have the defensive talent to really attack the pass. And so it just comes down to, as you said, Lewis, not beating themselves. Don't get a lot of penalties, get the points on the board when you get down in the red zone, and I think the rest will just take care of itself.
Yeah, Savon Triplet on the chat is actually talking about how he had mentioned the comparisons between the Dolphins and the Eagles. So you're definitely on point with that. And you said it, Zika, and I said it too. So just don't beat yourselves, and everything should be just fine for this offense. That's not an issue. Now, the defense, on the other hand, I'm a little bit concerned about that, Chad. And I think we all know why. Run defense is still an issue. Robert Quinn absolutely dominated Matt Khalil, and a lot of people are saying, well, Khalil was garbage anyway, and then we found out that Khalil was hurt, so take that for what you will. But Cam Wake still gets in there, and he still causes havoc. He was chasing around Cam Newton a little bit that day, and the defensive tackles, they are built to rush the passer. If you give them pass rushing duties, they can get in there. That's not the issue. The defensive tackles, on the other hand, they are not built for run defense. But you know what, Chad? And this is why I continue to talk about why the linebackers are more important. I still remember that one show where Channing Crowder came on with us, and he talked about how the most important positions in football are the cornerbacks and the defensive ends. And I basically told him, you're leaving out yourself. Your linebackers are the most important positions on the defense. And I even explained to him why. He disagreed with me, and that's fine. We all have our opinions. But this is why I continue to say the linebackers are so crucial to any defense. And if you have bad ones, you are going to suffer. It doesn't matter how good your corners and your ends are. If you do not have good linebackers, you will pay for it. And this is why I say that. Somebody pointed this out to me earlier today. I saw it on Twitter, and I thought, that's interesting. You remember Aaron Donald, right, Chad? He's like the best defensive tackle in football, even more so than Ndamukong Suh at this point.
Sure, yeah.
All right. So Aaron Donald won Defensive Player of the Year, right? He was on the 30th ranked run defense. Those Rams were the 30th in the league when it came to run defense. Aaron Donald, best defensive tackle in football, his defense ranked 30th against the run. How does that happen? If Aaron Donald is so special and the defensive tackles are so incredible in with the Rams, how did that happen? There had to be something else wrong, and I speculate it was the lack of linebacker play. That's the only explanation, because you don't have somebody like Aaron Donald anchoring the defensive line, similar to how we had in Ndamukong Suh all those years, and we have a horrible run defense. Which tells me that it isn't about the defensive tackle so much. It's not. that doesn't happen anymore. It has nothing to do with who's at DT. And that's kind of why I'm not worried about it so much, because, again, Jordan Phillips and those guys, they're built to rush the passer. And even Ndamukong Suh, to some extent, was also built to rush the passer. I don't think he was ever supposed to be the super beefy, stop-the-run defensive tackle. He was sometimes Suh was in the backfield so fast that the running back ran right past him. That was something that we saw about him, and Ndamukong Suh's not built for that. Aaron Donald is the best defensive tackle in football, and his defense with the Rams ranked 30th in run defense. That's what I saw on Twitter. I don't know if it's true or not. I would have to actually look it up and stuff, and I will after you get started talking just to verify. But if that's true, 30th against the run with Aaron Donald as your defensive tackle anchoring that run, that defense, how do you still have an awful run defense? There has to be something more, and it's the linebackers. So now what do we have in Miami? We have Kiko Alonso, who, when he's blitzing, he's definitely a lot better when he's attacking people than he is when he's in coverage. He just is. Kiko Alonso should never be in coverage. He should either be blitzing or he should be watching for people who are running with the ball. That's all he should ever do. Raekwon McMillan he's essentially a rookie. He's a rookie. He even though he technically is in the NFL for his second year, he's a rookie. He hasn't played before. He's slowly trying to get used to the fact that the speed on the field is a lot different. Like everybody talks about how, no, it's not really that different. We practice the same speed. It's like, no, it's still practice versus a game. It matters. You can tell the difference. And I'm sure that Raekwon is realizing, oh, yeah, this is kind of a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. And currently projecting is Jerome Baker, his old buddy from Ohio State. So Raekwon and Jerome Baker are going to be playing again together, and they do complement each other to an extent. But Jerome Baker is brought in here for coverage purposes because he's fast. He's not here to stop the run. He's not here to be the big, beefy, run-stopping linebacker. That's supposed to be Raekwon's job, and yet we still find Raekwon in coverage. So this is the problem that I'm having with this, and this is even more of a situation that I'll get to in a moment. But back to the linebacker position, our run defense, I believe, is solely dependent on how well the linebackers do. It's not about the defensive line. If it was about the defensive line, then we would not be having issues when Ndamukong Suh was in there, because you don't have Ndamukong Suh anchoring that defensive line. And if it's about the defensive tackles, stopping the run should be no issue. It's the linebackers, and Miami still needs work on those. I wish that it were different. I wish that Raekwon would have come in and become a superstar immediately, but that's not going to be the case. So we still have issues, and the run defense is going to happen to be an issue because of the linebackers, not because of who's at defensive tackle. Because if it weren't the case, then Ndamukong Suh should have fixed all our problems.
Yeah, it just is going to depend on the games. I mean, I'm not that worried. I don't feel like we are going to just not be able to stop the run. I just don't feel like we are built to allow a team to slam the football all game long, and that's where the points come in. But with our safeties, I feel pretty confident we can bring a TJ McDonald up or Rashad Jones up into the box, and
I agree.
That's a hard defense to run on if you do that.
No, I agree with that. Now sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I have to. I feel like I need to say this. I agree with that point. Absolutely. If they did that, it would be a lot better, because then essentially TJ McDonald and Rashad and Minka would be basically playing hybrid linebacker roles. The issue is, how confident are you that they'll actually, do that?
Oh, I think they will. I like I said, the Dolphins, I think, acutely can stop the run. What we can't do is expect this defense to stop teams that just go two tight ends and pound the football because they're up by 7 points or they're up by 3 points, and they don't want to expose, especially a team like Buffalo. Buffalo, absolutely, this whole season, that's going to be their game plan, is going to be to get the football to McCoy and try to run, because they want to protect their quarterback, because they don't want Josh Allen dropping back with the poor offensive line, because the chance of him turning the ball over is high because he's inexperienced. And so they want to be safe, pound the ball. I think our defense, by design, especially when you run that wide nine and what the D tackles do, our defensive tackles are meant to penetrate gaps. And so either with your interior defensive linemen, usually you have really big D tackles that are meant to occupy space, meaning they're really, really difficult to move from being right in the middle of the field, or your defensive tackles are a little more athletic, and they're meant to get through the gaps on the offensive line. They're going to shoot through the guard center gap, or they're going to shoot through the guard tackle gap. And that's what our defensive tackles are designed to do. They're designed to get penetration in there. And, last year it wasn't, again, it's a discipline issue, and whether or not it was Sue's fault or not, I think sometimes it was, but, your defensive tackle, if he's shooting a gap, your linebackers in the right defense should be filling the other gap that he didn't shoot through. And I think a lot of times you would see that in a game where Ndamukong Suh would blow into the backfield and the running back would go right by him, for a gain, because somebody else either wasn't feeling right, or Ndamukong Suh on his own just decided to go a different direction to try to get into the backfield. And that risk he took didn't pay off because he shot the wrong gap and the running back was by him. That sort of stuff. That, I think, that defense will at times be disruptive, and at times you're going to get running backs that get past your D tackles because they didn't have good gap discipline out of the whole defense. So that it'll be interesting to see how that goes, because I think both McMillan and Baker are going to struggle a little bit at making maybe mental mistakes in that defense. I don't think in any defense on any team you want your bigger linebackers in pass coverage. I don't think Kiko Alonso is a terrible linebacker in coverage. I think most linebackers are terrible in coverage in today's NFL with the speed, that you have them guys trying to cover. I'd like to see any team's starting linebacking core. Who are the starting linebackers that are going to cover Christian McCaffrey? I want to know who these linebackers are, because I don't think there's hardly any linebackers in the NFL that can keep up with Christian McCaffrey. So what that is it's the team has exposed a mismatch they had out there on the field. And that's more, in my mind, more on Matt Burke than it is on Kiko Alonso. Alonso is just doing the best he can to cover a guy in pass coverage, and that's just not going to be his strong suit as a linebacker. So hopefully with a player like Baker, he'll be able to help us out a little bit. But the defensive strength is going to have to be Xavier Howard and Minkah Fitzpatrick to create some of these better coverage matchups, because I believe that Minkah and Xavier Howard can both match up man-to-man on the majority of players in the NFL and do a good job. And so if you can take two players on your defensive scheme and leave them, if you want to say leave them on an island, or however you want to say it, leave them in man-to-man, that allows you to move players like Rashad Jones maybe into the box to cover the guy instead of Kiko Alonso. And that sort of stuff, and that'll allow them to flourish a little bit better. But again, that's all stuff designed to defend the pass. The Dolphins have good personnel right now to defend the pass, but it all circles around, can we get points on the board? Because if we can't, this defense, with the way our tackles, our gap penetrating tackles, and the way our linebackers are, Baker and Kiko Alonso, they can run, but are they going to be able to come up and fill on the guard center gaps and the guard tackle gaps when teams are just pounding the ball right up the middle? Those aren't big, powerful linebackers. And so our offense has got to carry their load this year. I don't believe in the last 3 or 4 years with this team we've had an offense that has actually carried their share of the load to take pressure off the defense. It's always been defense is expected to hang in there, win the game. I can think even back to the Philbin era. When we lost that heartbreaker to the Packers a few years ago, when Aaron Rodgers won the game at the very end of the game in the last play or two, and everybody was harping on our defense for giving that up. But the reality is we had the lead, and the offense came in and did a 3-and-out, and did nothing to help the defensive out. We just continue to put them out there and out there and out there. And they're going to get beat. They're going to get into coverage mismatches because if a team's power running the football and they're going to do it, the team doesn't have to worry about trying to score points. That's when you start having to cheat those safeties in there, and suddenly you're trying to get a creative blitz to get the ball back, and that's what gets Kiko Alonso in a one-on-one matchup with the tight end, because you were trying to blitz another linebacker, or you were trying to get a safety up on the other side of the line, and whatever schemes they're trying to work with. To me, that's just the basic fundamental way the season's going to go. Either we're going to score points and our defense is going to do well, or we're going to be playing a lot of tight games like we have in years past, and this defense is going to struggle to stop teams that have good run games.
Who I wish that we hadn't cut now? And I keep getting crucified over this, but I'm sticking by my guns on this one. I wish that, and he's a free agent right now. We could conceivably go back and get him if we really wanted to. But I wish that we could bring back Lawrence Timmons strictly as a run defending linebacker, because again, he showed up and we knew that Lawrence Timmons was not here to play in coverage. We knew that wasn't what he was good at. He was here to stuff the run. And you know what he did when he was here? Doggone it, he stuffed the run. That was what he was good at. And yes, he got tired down the line because we used him on pretty much every down because he was the best linebacker we had on the field at any given moment. I would say even more so than Kiko. But he was built to stuff the run. If we put him in a situation where he was here on 3rd and 3 and they were going to run the ball and we stuffed Timmons in there, he would get that stop. The run defense was greatly improved. And mind you, it was still not good last year, but it was improved when Lawrence Timmons was in there. Now that he's gone, I'm seeing a lot of big plays happening again against the run game again, and that is the concern. This is why I keep saying the linebackers are important. Lawrence Timmons had a huge impact on the running defense, and now that he's gone, we don't have somebody to fill that role.
I mean, it's hard to say so far. This keep in mind, McMillan this is his first few preseason games, so he's still learning the position.
I know, but still,
the film on him in college, he looked like a very sound tackler to me, and so I think he'll be okay. He's just got to figure out what he's supposed to do in the schemes, and I think the team is still learning what he can and can't do. I mean, if you're matching McMillan up in a lot of one-on-one pass coverage, you're not going to do well on that against the speed of these backs and tight ends in the NFL today. But I do think he'll kind of settle into being a sound tackler. I think right now what the team's trying to figure out is McMillan a guy that's going to be on the field every play, or is he going to be a 2-down linebacker? And right now he's looking like a 2-down linebacker, at least at this point in his career. And I think you keep the faster guys and Alonzo and Baker in there for the other parts of the defensive packages where you're going less linebackers. I think right now the team they have packages that they can stop the run. You don't want to run that all game. That's not what the team's designed to do. So when you've got William Hayes, I think he was a big signing. I know he's been hurt, but when you get him in there at defensive tackle, and I think he'll make the team is in Kendall Langford. You can put those guys out at D ends if you want to. And so you can come in there and put Hayes and Langford at D end and then put your D tackles in there and you can stop the run. I mean, that's not a defense that's going to be near as potent at rushing the passer. But if Miami wants to get the run stopped, it's not like they're just lacking in talent across the board and they can't put packages in there to match up and stop the run. We just don't want to have that be what we're doing all game long. And so I think early on in games that we'll be okay. We'll be able to do enough with our safeties. We'll be able to move players like William Hayes in and out on certain packages. And with McMillan in there, I think we'll get the run stop sufficiently. But again, we're not built to win games 10-7. That's just what you got to realize. And this offense it's really much more about the offense than the defense to me. I know a lot of people are talking about it, but I think our defense is just fine. I love our corners and our speed back there. I know nobody has really stepped up to win that number 2 corner job, but I still feel like from a depth standpoint, with these guys like Tankersley, I think we're in good shape. If somebody gets hurt, we're not having a huge drop off, in our defensive backfield. And Minka gives them a whole wide range of things they can do with him. Baker's looked to me very impressive in the preseason, how fast he is. It's been a while. You've seen some of those linebacking cores we've had in the past that just aren't that athletic. And do you remember in years past where the guy's name's Darren Sproles? How many times have you watched in past years Darren Sproles get the ball out in the flat and just torch us because our linebackers were unathletic? And that's why I like guys like Baker and Kiko, because that's one thing they can do is track down these faster running backs that get dump offs out of the backfield. And so I feel pretty good overall about our defensive personnel. It's just that it's the same with the Eagles. I don't know how good the Eagles defense would be if they had to defend 10 and 7 points the whole game, and you can't give up any more points or you're going to lose. So I don't have a high level of concern about our defense other than our interior being just a little bit softer than it has in years past.
Okay, fair enough. So we're running on about an hour now, so I want to go ahead and switch to the upcoming Ravens game. So that's what we're gonna close the show with. So now, obviously, again, Ravens game, third preseason game. It's gonna be a dress rehearsal. This is the game that's gonna give us the best look possible before Week 1 against the Tennessee Titans of what the Dolphins are gonna look like going forward. So. And mind you, I am very happy that we're playing the Ravens in the preseason because at least this game won't count because the Ravens have been like the bane of our existence, even more so than New England over these past few years. It's like every time we run into Baltimore, we get whooped. I don't know what it is about that team specifically, but we keep getting run roughshod over. So glad it's in the preseason. So now I want to know, Chad, what is it that you want to see the most? Like I understand what you've already said, but let's give me 3 players that you're going to be looking at more than anybody else during this dress rehearsal game.
I'm looking. One is I'm excited to see the first quarter or two of our defense against the Ravens because I think Baltimore right now has some serious internal drama at quarterback. I think, they've got Joe Flacco, and I think Joe Flacco really, really wants to come out and have a really good half of football right now because, the buzz is already there that Lamar Jackson, he's got a huge following in the nation. He's an electric quarterback from an athletic standpoint, and fans want to see him play because of what he can do. Not necessarily that he's going to be an efficient quarterback, but they want to just see the highlight plays that guy can pull off. And so Joe Flacco really doesn't want to come into the only real preseason game where the quarterbacks play a full half of football and throw an interception or have a bad completion run. So I think we're going to get a pretty good look at an offense trying to put points on the board. So we're going to actually see our defense get challenged. So I'm really looking to see how well our defense does against the Baltimore offense because for that reason alone, I think they're going to be trying pretty hard.
So wait. Are you saying that Lamar Jackson's going to get starter snaps?
No, I don't. I'm not saying that. I'm saying there's the buzz in the fan base. I think there's even the buzz within the team that players want to see Lamar Jackson getting those snaps.
Okay, so you're saying that Flacco's going to be going beyond all out this time.
Yeah, I'm saying Flacco doesn't want to come in and have a lackluster performance. He wants to come in and play very well. So I'm just making the point. I think more so than most preseason games, the Baltimore offense is going to be trying really hard to perform well. So that should be a nice give you the best feel you're going to get in a preseason game that how good our defense is looking against the team running their starting offense. I think they're going to be trying to score. So if they go right up and down the field on our defense, that'll change my opinion, and I'll be a lot more concerned. But yeah, we're gonna get a feel of our defense playing against a team trying. Let's put it that way. And then on the other side of the ball, of course, I'm interested to see Ryan Tannehill. We've done nothing but see just glimpses of him, and I don't want to see it, but I do. I want to see Ryan Tannehill take a shot and just to get that out of the way. I think even he could use that. Getting a nice, nice hard hit on him just so he can pop back up and say, you know what, I am ready to go. And everybody's going to hold their breath when that happens. But I want to see Ryan Tannehill play a half of real football and not real safe football so that we kind of are ready. Because once week 1 gets here, you're not going to be able to play that way anymore. If Ryan Tannehill has to take off and run and take on a hit to get a first down, that's what happens in the regular season. So I'd like to see him at least run a play or two without fear, that way of if he gets hit, he gets hit sort of thing. I don't think we're going to see Frank Gore. I've been eager to see him. I've been hearing nothing but good reports about him in practice, but I am just curious to see if he really still has that burst or not. And so I don't know if we'll get to see that or not in the Ravens game. But
well, for what it's worth, it looks like he does to me.
Yeah, and I guess the final 2 things is I'm looking to see is the defense now settled? Is it going to be Bobby McCain playing the boundary corner and Minkah Fitzpatrick playing the slot, or are they going to still play around and still see where we're at with McTiver and Tankersley? Is Lippett even still in the running at all? Where are they at in the corners? So I think we ought to be getting some really high-level corner play from those 3 or 4 guys because I think that position isn't 100% locked down yet. I think they would still like to be able to put Tankersley out there more and use Bobby McCain in the slot more, but that's what I like to look for. Preseason games are guys that are still trying to win starting jobs because you should be getting to see a real high level of what they can do. And the last thing is quarterbacks. I feel like Bryce. I think he's hurt now, unfortunately, but I kind of wanted to see Bryce Petty get a chance to run with the number 2 offense. He hasn't had that chance, and he's looked better with the 3 and 4 offense than the number 2 guys have in the first 2 preseason games. And if Bryce Petty is a better option at backup, or maybe the better way to say it is if he's not as bad of an option at backup, they need to know that. And I'm hoping that Adam Gase isn't making the choice just based on his personal relationship with Fales and Osweiler from their past, and they're at least getting the best possible backup in there they can. And I haven't seen anything that suggests that Fales or Osweiler are playing any better than Petty. So I don't think we'll get to see him though if he's injured. But that would probably be my top things to look for, Lewis.
All right, so before I give mine, I'm just going to address Savan Triplet in the chat has been going nuts over Raekwon and Jerome Baker. Like, I get what you're saying, man. I understand. Raekwon has been sitting on the sideline. He's in the playbook and all that stuff. He's still got to get used to actually being on the field. That has to happen. As for Jerome Baker, yes, he's probably one of the faster linebackers in the NFL right now. Hopefully he can use that to his advantage. I don't know if I would say Raekwon is one of the fastest linebackers in football. I just real quick answer, Chad. Do you see Raekwon as one of the faster guys? Because I don't, honestly. I don't think speed was ever his MO.
No, not relative to like James Baker. No, he's not as fast as Kiko or Baker. I've seen. But no. with that being said, he's not playing in a position where he's expected to be extremely fast. He's expected to be very sound at tackling, and that's what he is. If it were me, I would say screw injury concern. I would play Raekwon the whole damn game, the rest of the preseason, just because he just needs to get snaps in and get adjusted because. Is it Chase Allen? I'm trying to think of the guy behind him probably right now.
Yeah, Chase Allen is probably the main guy right now. Mike Holt got hurt, so he's done, and Stephon Anthony has been with the 2s and 3s lately.
Yeah, I think Baker has Stephon Anthony beat out right now. That's just my take. But Chase Allen, I think, probably knows the defense and is more comfortable right now than Raekwon McMillan, but McMillan to me is more talent, and so they just need to get him as many reps as possible. And I still put that on the coach. I mean, this isn't college football; it's pro football, and I don't really give a shit that they're draft picks. Gil Sicki and Durham Smythe and Raekwon McMillan and James Baker. These guys need to be ready to play at week 1. And so I expect the coaches, the positional coaches, to get those guys ready. And I don't know any other way to do it than get them on the field and not be worried about them getting hurt so much, and get them a lot of snaps.
Okay, yeah. So I'm gonna now, with that said and done, I'm gonna go ahead and give my 3 guys that I'm gonna be watching. Of course. You know what? I'm going to give 4 because one of the 3 is going to be Ryan Tannehill. So I'm going to count him as 3.5. Ryan Tannehill, of course, I want to see what he does. I want to see if he can continue moving the ball. I want to continue to see if he's accurate, if he's on target with his throws, if he's reading the field, if he's avoiding pressure if it comes up. I want to see him run the offense. Now, if somebody gets a false start, again, that's not his fault. So I don't want to hear anything about that. So I just want to see him keep the ball moving. That's what I want to see. And I would really love to see him get a touchdown. That's what I want to see more than anything. Please, just once. Score. Please score. That's what I want to see. So my official first person that I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on is I want to see what Mike Gesicki can do, and I want to see if he's actually going to get some passes, because I understand the theory of we're keeping him under wraps because we don't want to use him more than we should. I get that. I understand that. It's a sound, logical idea in that sense. You don't want to put too much tape out of him, and I get that, but you have to at least get him some practice. Even though that's technically his specialty, he still needs to practice in the NFL against NFL defenders. He needs to be able to see if we can make some catches. I mean, you don't see the Ravens hiding Hayden Hurst. Of course, Hayden Hurst is hurt now, so that's kind of besides the point. But we need to see what Mike Gesicki can do catching the football as well. I understand he needs to practice his blocking, and I absolutely want to watch him block too, because that's going to be some serious issues there. You still have Terrell Suggs on one side, so and if Gesicki is going to be going against the likes of Terrell Suggs, if he can just keep it from being a bloodbath, that's a win for Gesicki. That's what I think about that. Just don't get utterly destroyed by pass rushers. That's all we ask of you as far as blocking goes. So that's one. Mike Gesicki is one. The second one that I want to keep a very close eye on is I want to see what Albert Wilson does. And when I say that, I'm saying it with the context of more than likely with Kenny Stills back in, Albert Wilson is going to see less snaps. That's the whole situation going on here. Devontae Parker is still out with that broken finger, but what's going to happen is that they're probably going to go ahead and give some more steps to Kenny Stills, and they'll give stuff to Danny Amendola, and Albert Wilson will probably be the third wide receiver in that sense. So I want to see what he.
I don't think you'll see some in the first.
Oh yeah, I didn't think he was not going to play, but.
No, I would say on Amendola, I don't see them playing him a whole lot in this preseason game because I think he knows what he's doing, and there's no sense on, especially with his history of having injury issues. I wouldn't think we'd see a whole lot of Amendola, but we'll see. I think you'll see a lot more of Albert Wilson, which I'm excited to see him. He's a dynamic player. So, obviously. Jarvis Landry was a fan favorite. I think he's fallen out of that, mode with being in Cleveland. But I honestly think Albert Wilson can do practically everything that Jarvis Landry could do, except he's a lot faster. I really do believe that. So I think you'll see that in this offense. It won't just be Albert Wilson, but I think with Jakeem Grant and Albert Wilson and Kenny Stills, they'll feed those same sort of passes they fed to Jarvis Landry, and I think we may score more points because all those guys are faster than the majority of guys on the field. And Jarvis Landry, he was really good at running somebody over, but it was not very threatening for him to take it to the house because he's just not that fast. And all three of those guys are very fast. And so I really think our offense will execute better without Jarvis Landry than with him. And whether that's a popular opinion or not, I am really starting to believe that.
Yeah, there's still some folks out there who are still hanging on to the whole Jarvis Landry, the Landry gang. There's still some out there. But anyway, so Albert Wilson's number 2. If I had to pick number 3, see, now it gets harder because there's a lot of players you want to watch, but you got to watch more some than others. Okay, what I want to see if I'm going to go back to Mr. Triplet in the chat. I want to see Raekwon, and I want to see what he does. I want to see if he kind of learned any lessons from the Carolina experience. I want to see if he's kind of caught on to what's going to be going on. Can he make tackles? Can he read things better? Because there have been a lot of instances where it isn't so much about how fast he is or not. He's just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And that's what I want to see that's what I want to see happen as far as linebackers go. I want to see what Raekwon does. That's going to be my number 3 for players to watch. Now, I'm not even going to bother with a score prediction because honestly, a score prediction at this point is a waste of time. It's the preseason. Somebody asked me what I wanted to do for fun for the Panthers game. I said 26-24. I only picked that number because that was the exact same score that was at the Tampa Bay game, and that was the first thing that came to mind.
I will say with the score, Lewis, unlike a lot of preseason games, the second half, is going to be pretty interesting because I really do not believe David Fales or Brock Osweiler has that job remotely secure, and neither one of those players can afford to come into that second half and throw a couple interceptions. And so we ought to be getting a really good look at some really high pressure on those quarterbacks, and as well as the receivers they're throwing to. I mean, that's a dogfight right now in the receiving position.
Can I throw in one more player that I want to get a good look at?
Go for it.
Robert Griffin III.
Yeah, that's a good point because is he better than any of our backups right now? That's a very fair question. And I don't see him staying on that team with Lamar Jackson. I really don't. And so you could be looking at our backup quarterback on the other sideline. You're absolutely right.
I wouldn't be upset if that was the case. I mean, it's better than Osweiler, Fales, and Petty, that's for sure. It's like, I'll take RG3, no problem. Sure, bring him on. And some Savon Triplin in the chat is talking about Nick Foles. After what Nick Foles did against the Cleveland Browns, no thank you. I knew Nick Foles was overrated. He still is overrated, and I don't care anything about that NFL MVP garbage. No, Nick Foles. Thank you. That ship has sailed in my book.
He'll be on the Eagles anyway. They're going to
keep Nick Foles. But let me tell you something. Doug Peterson's quotes after the whole situation, he was not happy at all.
No, what your point though? RG3 is one of the names right there. Obviously, Teddy Bridgewater is another name. The Jets are trying to trade him, but I don't know that the Jets can afford to keep. They've got to let somebody go. The Jets do. They're not going to.
I'd take either McCown or Bridgewater. No sweat. Just not trading for him.
Yeah, either one would probably be better as a backup than what we have. And so that's something you just have to kind of wonder right now is if that's where Miami's going or not. Are they really going to? Because I don't think you can probably. You'd have to carry three. They're going to have to keep one quarterback between Osweiler, Failers, and probably between Osweiler and Fales if they're going to sign a third. And they're going to probably have to carry three into a few weeks into the season while they get whoever they brought in up to speed. But it's a very, very big question right now. Is Miami's backup? It was highlighted this week on, was it Gil Brandt? I'm not sure who was it, where they rated Miami as having the worst quarterback situation in the league right now, mainly because of their backup talent. But there's probably several. I haven't really went through the rosters right now, but there's probably, I'm going to guess, 3 or 4 quarterbacks that are going to be available at cut day that might be upgrades to what we have.
I would speculate either Bridgewater or McCown, and I would think that between the two of them, Bridgewater is the better one. Sam Darnold's going to wind up starting, whether you agree with the idea or not. But Darnold's going to start, and I think Bridgewater's going to be their backup, which means Josh McCown's going to get the boot, and I would absolutely take him over any of the guys we have right now. I would take RG3 in a heartbeat because, whether he's a superstar quarterback or not, he's not anymore, but he's definitely got what it takes to be a serviceable backup. I would absolutely not have any issues with that. I'll tell you somebody who I don't want is Matt Moore because, again,
you're not going to see Matt.
No, because, for all the talk about Matt Moore knowing the offense and stuff like that and all the love that Moore gets from the fan base for whatever reason, I get it. The whole gunslinger mentality is what we love, but his arm is dead. That's why Cutler was brought in to begin with.
Matt Moore is not. Maybe you can compare him to what we have, but he wouldn't be. You'd be just as fine keeping Osweiler or Fales if that's where. He's kind of proven that he is what he is. He's not even what he is anymore. That's the whole point. His arm is gone. That's why Cutler was brought in to begin with. Is because Matt Moore's arm is dead. Yeah, he's retiring. If he hasn't already, I would think Matt Moore is going to hang it up. But no, I don't know. I'll have to think about the league. But I totally had forgotten about RG3. It'd be kind of interesting to see how he plays, won't it? In the preseason, because I assume he'll play. I assume he's listed as the backup right now, but maybe not. I don't know, because I assume he's going to get beat out by Lamar Jackson. They don't draft him where they did and keep 3. I don't think they'll keep 3. It's really hard with these rosters at 52 guys with the special teams players and the depth you need at corner anymore in the league to keep 3 quarterbacks is pretty tough. Yeah, I'm thinking that RG3 being a backup for Miami would be one of the best case scenarios. Bridgewater getting cut would be just gold, just freaking gold. Just bring him in. Bridgewater, if he gets cut, which he won't be, but I'm just saying, if he does, he would definitely be coming in on a cheap deal. He's not going to get cut from the Jets training camp and preseason and demand a big contract. That's just not going to happen. No, I don't think Bridgewater will get cut, Louis. I think the Jets are going to shop him because, obviously the Jets' future is Darnold. And so the Jets would be very comfortable starting Sam Darnold this year with McNown helping him as a veteran backup. That's where the Jets want to go. But if they can't get any decent trade offers for Bridgewater, they'll just, I think, let McNown go, and they'll keep Bridgewater as the backup. Yeah, there's no way. But I'd be happy with McCown, too, as a backup. So I'm perfectly okay with that, too. Yeah, I would agree. I don't know. I guess that'll depend on Adam Gase where he rates him against their current backups. But I don't know.
If he's honest, he will realize, yeah, no, McCown's better than both of those guys.
Yeah, I think he probably, depending on your situation. I mean, right now, if Tannehill were to get hurt and you had to start a quarterback week one, McCown would obviously be the pick. He's got a lot more experience, and you'd feel a lot better at him managing the game than Fales. And Osweiler just seems extremely inconsistent to me, and I think we had enough.
He's bad, Chad. No, say it right. He's bad. Oh my God, watching him in camp was awful.
Well, I've watched him. He has a good arm. He's just extremely inconsistent, and so I think we saw. You know who else has a really good arm is Jay Cutler, and he's
he doesn't even have that anymore.
He has a cannon. He does. He can make all the throws. But Jay Cutler,
Chad, he bounced balls 5 yards behind his receivers.
That's not because of his arm. It's because he never sets his feet. He just rolls backwards and throws it. But his mechanics are the worst I've ever seen. Jay Cutler's mechanics were the worst I've ever seen. But either way, I think we've all had enough. We've had enough of inconsistent quarterback play, and that's all Brock Osweiler is going to give you is inconsistency. And so I don't know what I'm hoping that's their plan. You know, I led the show off with that, but I have no idea what they're thinking right now at the backup quarterback position.
I think we have our first troll in the chat. Dave sucks. Hey, everyone, trading your Dolphins jersey for a trash bag. It's the same thing, y'all. Oh, okay. Well, I don't know whose team you root for. I hope it's not Cleveland because, I mean, hey, I don't think 5 points is something to be proud of.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, there's always the trolls. But, I think the national media is down on the Dolphins, but I do think they're an 8-8 team right now. And so, you don't know if that'll turn out to be a 6-10 team or a 10-6 team, but right now in the division, I think the Dolphins are way under the radar because of our schedule alone. I mean, I don't think the Buffalo or the Jets right now, either one of those teams, I don't think they're even intending to be that competitive this year. I mean, obviously they're not going to go out and try to lose or anything, but those teams are looking at developing those rookie quarterbacks and being really good in the next 2 to 3 years. They're not coming out this year, I think, with any delusions that they're going to make a Super Bowl run with those rookie quarterbacks and the personnel they have around them. They're trying to build teams still, and so I do think the Patriots they're starting to teeter. Brady's 41. Their offensive line doesn't look that good to me right now, the Patriots, and so they may fall down a little bit this year. So to me,
as of the show they're playing right now, you know that they're playing the Panthers.
Oh, are they really?
Yeah.
They're going to still be. The Patriots are going to be good. I'm not saying they're going to be bad. I'm just saying I don't know that they're as good as they have been in years past, but they'll still be tough. They always are. But I think the division, though, I mean, you're playing the Jets twice and you're playing Buffalo twice. And last year we didn't even get that home game, and we've lost home games to London. And this is the first year Miami actually has like a schedule that they're getting their normal home games in. And so that might be in itself another win or two. They were 6-10 last year with Jay Cutler. I mean, for crying out loud. So I think their team is better. Their offensive line is definitely better. So I really do. I feel like the Dolphins are an 8-8 team at least right now on paper. They're definitely not one of the worst teams in the league. And so it's going to be fun. I kind of like that coming into a year with everybody thinking you're one of the worst teams in the league, that underdog status, because it takes a lot of the pressure off some of these guys that, versus coming in and being expected to be a Super Bowl contender. If Miami is over 500 this year, I would think that a lot of people will feel like they did really well.
Well, national media would feel like they did better. I don't think Dolphins fans will be satisfied.
No, to me, I expect the team, for a coach and a team, as you're the management, you expect that team to be in the playoff hunt every single year until the last game of the season. And so what you don't want are those years where, where there's 4 games left and you're really already out of it. And so you're looking for a team that's always in the playoff hunt. That's what I look for anyway.
Yeah, that's what here's hoping. So, all right. So I think we're going to go ahead and call it here. And like I said, I will try to get more podcasts going. I know that we haven't done a lot. I want to do one next week. I don't know if it's going to be on a Friday or a Saturday or a Sunday or a what, but we are going to do a podcast at some point. So I want to say thank you for everybody who was listening and everybody who will listen tomorrow. And hopefully you listen to it before the Ravens game, because otherwise this would be a waste of time. But thank you all so much for joining us. I will go ahead and end this show here, and we will see you all next week. And it will be next week, I promise, for another episode of PhinManiacs Live. And